You know, I really hate the AAA games industry. But a brand new Resident Evil came out recently, and those are always a good time, so I just had to check it out. And wow, I gotta say, it feels like it's been a while since I played a single-player game with this much budget behind it. Look, it even has yellow paint. Another 1,000 years of discourse, please. Also, this one's got Leon in it, and I have incredibly normal thoughts and feelings about that guy. I feel normal, so I played it, and after rolling credits on it, I can't lie to you, I have some incredibly mixed feelings. Look, don't get me wrong, it absolutely has the juice. Throughout the game, you switch between Grace Ashcroft, a new character who represents classic Resident Evil in all its slow-paced resource management glory, and Leon Submissive Kennedy, who represents the zombie-mulching, boulder-punching action that was popularized by RE4. Both gameplay styles are streamlined to a kind of absurd degree, with mechanics lifted from all over the series to create the most Resident Evil there ever has been. On Grace's side, you've got levels that are all about that addictive key-hunting exploration, with her main area being the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, a creepy mansion hospital that oozes character around every corner. Literally. This time around, zombies retain some of their human personality, creating a variety of enemy types that make for unique encounters the whole way through. Every room is a new macabre tableau, with standouts like a frightening feast in the dining hall and a zombie singer performing a spooky serenade in the second-floor lounge. Crafting has been simplified to make use of nasty infected zombie blood as a universal resource, letting you make anything from handgun bullets to Molotov cocktails, like you're in fucking Bloodborne or something. Crimson Heads are back in a big new way. This time they're called Blister Heads, on account of the blisters on their heads. And you just know there's a big stalker enemy ready to do a scary grab on you. Don't worry though, because with these great threats come even greater tools to fight back. Alongside your standard issue pistols and emergency knives, you have hemolytic injectors, syringes full of funny purple juice that let you pop zombies like Charlie Kirk's neck on 9/11 Eve, which prevents them from mutating by deleting them from the game entirely in a spectacular shower of blood and guts. And of course, putting the piece in pièce de résistance is the Requiem itself. This super strap is the legally required magnum of this game, and it blows enemies away like nothing else. As usual for Resident Evil, it's a powerful tool for dealing with the most dire circumstances, but unlike other games in the series, this is actually your starting gun. It does a lot to shift the purpose of the magnum away from a gun you only pull out to kill bosses and into a last resort get-out-of-jail-free card for any sticky situation you might find yourself in. It's just so satisfying to whip this thing out and barrel through whatever's in front of you. Also, can I just say, the gore in this game is immaculate. Just look at that dangler. Hitting critical headshots and watching blood spray everywhere from what's left is insanely satisfying. And downing a zombie as Leon to explode its head like the most demented water balloon ever never gets old. Speaking of Leon, he plays a lot like a simplified version of his RE4 Remake self. Parrying is a returning mechanic, but this time you can sharpen your melee weapon on the fly for free, which encourages a more aggressive and up-close playstyle. The attaché case is also back, which kinda sucks because I always run out of space for everything I need in there. But all of this makes for a Leon that just feels good. I will say Leon's levels are a little more boring than Grace's, if not in terms of level design, then definitely in terms of visual design. Wandering through the boring-ass, bombed-out ruins of Raccoon City had me wondering how many of these assets were reused from DMC5's boring-ass, bombed-out city. But thankfully it's balanced out by plenty of fun combat encounters that let you make the most of Leon's toolset. Also, I know this is a hot take for Leon's half of the game, but I actually kinda like the enemy design. Sure, the basic zombies are a little bland, but look at this guy in Mad Max gear. Why is he wearing that? I don't know, but it's fucking awesome. And I think you got lost in the way to the high wall of Lothric, buddy. All that being said though, everything after you reach the RPD is kinda... Well, listen, if my PNGtuber could do a jerk-off motion, I'd be doing it right now. You see, the game had already introduced a guy who is so definitely not Wesker that I thought he actually was Wesker at first, but then he sticks an RE2 Remake model rip on you for a really mediocre boss fight where he has like 3 or 4 attacks that are all super easy to parry because they're telegraphed from a mile away and you just shoot his evil booby until he dies. And sure, if they were trying to show us how far Leon's come by how easily he can take out Mr. X now, then yeah, I can see what they were going for. But if they think they can just show me the thing from the other thing and expect me to hoot and holler like an untrained monkey, then they need to rethink. Oh my god, guys, that's Hunk. He is the 4th survivor of the Raccoon City incident. He's a fucking legend, one of the most badass characters in the whole series, and he finally gets to fight one of the heroes. Holy shit, this is so— Oh, I killed him. In like 2 minutes. Okay. Oh, wait, sorry. That was probably so easy because it wasn't Hunk. It was just a guy who looks and sounds exactly like him. But he's called the Commander, so really there's no way to know if they're actually the same guy. And also, Mommy just disappeared behind a pair of hands after saying peekaboo again, and I'm starting to get really scared. Oh well, surely the final boss will be unique and challenging and not just an RE3 remake model rip. So yeah, there's a lot of clunky fan service in the final third of the game, but you know what? I can't be too mad about it. It's the 30th anniversary. Would I have liked the final boss to be something other than a giant cancerous mass that doesn't look like anything covered in a bunch of glowing weak points? Yeah, but Resident Evil has always been this way, for better or worse. The story itself is, well, like, it's fine. I think Grace's relationship with Emily develops a bit too fast, but I understand what they were going for with the themes of hope for a better future and the parallels to Alyssa adopting Grace after Spencer died. I think part of that is just that they only get half a game to develop that plotline, so her eventual mutation, death, and revival just doesn't have the impact it could have if you actually spent more time with her throughout the game. Honestly, the whole ending with Emily is really silly.
I didn't hit any of her vitals.
But again, at the end of the day, Resident Evil has always been more campy genre fiction than anything else. The bad guys always lose, and the good guys always live to fight BOWs another day. Except helicopter pilots. Helicopter pilots always die. But yeah, that's RE9. A crystallization of everything the franchise has ever been into a singular experience that has something for everyone, even if the ending is a little silly even by Resident Evil standards. Truly another Capcom banger. Except, there's just one more thing. This game is too fucking easy. Grace's sections drop off in difficulty almost immediately because of all the tools you get, and it just makes the game feel way less scary than it should be. The opening bit with the girl sets a high bar for the rest of the game, but once you have weapons, it just starts easing up on the throttle way too fast. Also, great job on her name, guys. Real creative. Honestly, I don't think there's anything more telling about this game's difficulty than when it hands you an empty gun, but then immediately gives you bullets in the very next room. The zombies themselves are also pretty easy to get past, especially if you're familiar with the Resident Evil stun and run meta. And even blister heads are pretty easy to stagger and kill with an injection. Injectors themselves are a finite resource, technically, but they're not that hard to craft, and it's hard to feel threatened when you can do an exploding stealth takedown on any zombie that matters. But honestly, the biggest issue for me is the Requiem itself. The concept of a weapon that can temporarily ease up the tension in times of stress is actually really great, but you find ammo for it pretty consistently, and more importantly, there weren't that many situations where I felt the need to use it. Unless you're pulling it out in every single encounter, you're gonna start generating a decent stockpile of ammo by the time you reach the basement, which makes that area completely trivial. You see, the basement is all about juggling regular enemies alongside the girl's stalker gameplay, and you'd think that would make for a great test of your exploration skills after experiencing them both separately, but it actually doesn't matter. One shot from the Requiem doesn't just stun the girl, it makes her fuck off completely. She comes back sooner than later, but it's still more than enough time to complete whatever objective she's guarding. And even though it's not ever necessary to shoot her, there are only a couple times where she really gets in the way anyway, so it's not like it's gonna cost you. I think this would work a lot better if she took 2 bullets to stun instead. That would at least create the interesting choice of deciding between a big resource drain for an easier time or saving your ammo at the cost of twice the challenge. But as it stands, it's just an easy way to suck all the tension out of the game, and that really sucks. And before you tell me that I control what buttons I press, you don't know that the Requiem will even do this to her unless you've shot her once already. And by then, it's too late. The unknowns have become knowns. You can choose to do whatever you want after that, but now you've seen the strings, and you can't just unsee them. You get what I'm saying? It really should be tense and scary to deal with these threats, but the game gives Grace so many tools to counteract its own design that it just ends up feeling toothless. Honestly, I'd argue that the scariest thing to come out of this game was Grace getting hit by the NVIDIA misogyny beam. Seriously, Capcom doesn't need your help, guys. Claire is already missing because they ran out of excuses for why women don't age in the series. But honestly, Grace is so good at killing things that I actually didn't even realize that zombies could still be alive when you go through the care center as Leon. I seriously thought they were all scripted to be dead when he showed up, so I just rushed the office. Speaking of Leon, I already spoke a little bit about the bosses, but honestly, none of them are good, and and they have the weirdest difficulty curve. The Titan Spinner is easily the hardest on normal difficulty, mostly because its weak point isn't exposed unless it's shooting babies at you, and it moves so erratically that it's hard to tell when you can parry it, but every boss after this just kind of feels like the same thing. Just parrying one of 3 attacks with the most obvious telegraphs ever over and over while dumping all of your ammo into them. And then there's the Arc, which brings back Lickers with the cadence of this serious final navigation challenge for both of the player characters to deal with, but my first instinct when I saw one was to light it on fire and then explode it like any other enemy. I know the lab sections of these games are always more about the action, but I still feel like something's not quite right if I'm playing interactive Buddy instead of Resident Evil. And that's before you get the item that's designed specifically for killing them instantly. You could say this is all meant to reinforce Grace's growth as a character. After all, she has gone from running scared through the care center to bravely taking down the girl at the climax of the game's first half to killing Lickers like it's nothing. But I've been sneaking up and exploding enemies this whole time, so the change isn't really felt from a gameplay perspective. Look, the issue here isn't that the game is campy or that it's not fun or even that it's just generally easy. I've actually played easier games that have scared me way more than this has. No. The issue is that the game doesn't feel like what it's presenting itself to be. Even on my first playthrough, where I didn't really know what was waiting around every corner, I just felt this disconnect between how I actually felt and what I think I was supposed to feel. Yeah, that's right. I'm about to say the most dreaded words in game critique. Zozo go ba ba ba. Okay, but seriously, I just felt like I was playing a different game than the one Grace was reacting to, and whatever contrast I was supposed to feel compared to Leon's half just never really came. I guess at this point you have to ask yourself, can a $70 game that has to appeal to literally everyone to make a profit even be scary? Personally, I'm starting to have my doubts, because now even Silent Hill has perfect dodging and timed counter hits, and that's not even the wackiest shit you can do in that game. I get it, you're never gonna get Kitty Horror Show level scares in Resident Evil. Hell, you're not even gonna get David Zemansky level scares. But a game that markets itself as part of a genre that's all about creating tension through limited resources and insurmountable enemies should at least commit to that for a little longer than this one does. It's just constant reminders that games are slowly being sandpapered into perfectly sleek and smooth objects that have the shape of something unique but feel identical to everything else. No challenge, no room for any real discomfort, it's just product. That's not a particularly new observation, but this is the first time I felt it so clearly get in the way of what a game is claiming to be. And maybe it just stings a little more because it's a series I really love. But I know what you've been thinking. If I'm such a big Resident Evil fan, why sit here complaining when I could just play on a harder difficulty like Standard Classic? Well, I did do that, actually. Like, immediately after beating the game for the first time. But there's a reason I didn't start there. You see, Standard Classic's biggest change from Standard Modern is the addition of, get this, the Classic save system, which makes it so that you can only save by using consumable ink ribbons. I'm generally not a fan of limiting saves as a vector for difficulty. It's usually more frustrating than anything else, and you can end up in a situation where you have to redo a bunch of stuff you already know just to get another shot at the thing you're actually stuck on. Also, I still have lingering trauma from a corrupted Witcher 3 save in high school, so now I save multiple times in multiple slots before closing any game that'll let me do that. But if any genre can make limited saves work, it's horror. You see, ink ribbons add an additional layer to your resource management while also ratcheting up the tension. After all, what's more scary than the idea that you could lose the very real progress you've made and have to do it all over again? Plus, my big problem with the game in the first place is that it wasn't tense enough anyway, so I faced my fears and gave it a go. And believe it or not, I felt that it was actually easier than Standard Modern. Don't get me wrong, ink ribbons took some time to get used to. Every typewriter comes with a courtesy ribbon nearby, but outside of that, you'll mostly just have to craft them yourself. At first, I was stubborn and focused on crafting injectors because, like, why worry about dying if you can just explode the zombies? But in the process, I made some pretty epic blunders. Watch me hit this clip in Resident Evil. Please tell me it auto-saved after the... But once I let go of my gamer pride and got into a good rhythm for crafting ribbons and saving at the right time, the game played out almost identically. A lot of that came down to just knowing the game since this is my second playthrough, but a couple things happened that really changed how I saw the game even after factoring that in. Firstly, after you beat the game for the first time, Leon gets immediate access to supply boxes whether you want it or not, and along with that, they scatter some extra tracking modules around in the early game areas. So this time around, I actually went and cleared out the whole care center just to grab that extra money. And even though I didn't realize it at the time, this had the huge knock-on effect of giving Grace a ton of extra blood to pick up once she got back to the care center. More than enough to craft anything I needed, including a bunch of ink ribbons. Kind of a fun throwback to RE2's stupidly named zapping system, but the only real level left for Grace after she collects all these goodies is the Arc. And needless to say, the liquors weren't any scarier the second time around. Oh, and the other thing. I learned that blister heads are completely predetermined. The same zombies mutate every single time. I started to catch on when the zombie near the garage went blister mode again during my walk of shame, but this guy also mutating confirmed my suspicions because I distinctly remember that being the first blister head I encountered on Modern. I gotta say, I fucking hate this. It kills replayability and takes any remaining tension out of deciding which zombies to kill. You can just preemptively explode all the ones you know are gonna turn and kill the rest regular style without even worrying. I'm really not sure why they implemented it this way. God, the seams of the game are really starting to show right now. As for the Leon half of Standard Classic, well, it's just the same thing as Modern because the ink ribbon system only applies to Grace. Sure, zombies are a little more beefed up, but not enough to really differentiate how he plays between Modern and Classic, which means you're doing the exact same combat, the exact same set pieces, the exact same exploration. Oh my god! But yeah, you get the idea. Leon still feels great to play, but I didn't feel like I was getting a whole lot out of doing his sections again. There just wasn't anything new to keep it feeling fresh. The best I can really say is that the slight bump in early game difficulty makes his sections work even better as tension relievers than they do on Standard Modern, and I think that definitely counts for something. Overall, it's not a total chore, but it feels like a missed opportunity when Grace's gameplay at least has a new mechanic to— Oh my god! Seriously though, even the boss fights are the same. The spider is still the hardest one, Mr. X is still the most parryable BOW on the planet, and come on, you think I'm afraid of Hunk after what I did to him on my first playthrough? I killed him no problem. This time I'm gonna wipe the floor. Okay, but I did kill him second try by spamming heavy attacks. But yeah, Standard Classic was ultimately kind of underwhelming. The ink ribbon system is interesting to work around at first, but once you get the ball rolling with your resources, it just isn't enough to make the game feel different from Modern difficulty. I even finished it 3 hours faster than on my first playthrough. Ugh, this really sucks. I played through this game twice, and I'm still just frustrated. Well, there is one more difficulty, isn't there? Here's the deal. I never do this. I always play games on the normal difficulty. I never really bother with New Game Plus, and I'm usually the first person to think a game is too hard for its own good. Seriously, if your friend Brett says you're gay because you beat Shadows of the Erdtree with summons or something, maybe he's not really your friend anyway. But at this point, I've talked so much shit about the game's difficulty that I kinda have to do this. So everyone gather around to point and laugh at me as I share with you my journey of beating Resident Evil Requiem on Insanity difficulty. I wouldn't normally do this kind of thing, but I thought it would be interesting to zoom in a little bit and give you more of a play-by-play to show you my process of adapting to this, because replaying a game on the hardest difficulty is kind of a new experience for me. Before I get started though, let it be known that I'm going into this about as vanilla as possible, with a couple exceptions that are mostly the game's fault. I mentioned it before, but I'll have early access to Leon's supply box. It's balanced out by the fact that you have to buy all your old weapons back with points, but this does mean that you can get stronger weapons earlier than you would on your first playthrough. But on Insanity, that really doesn't mean much. Also, once you pick up a charm on any difficulty, you have it in your inventory forever, so I'll be using all of those too. And finally, I unlocked advanced tuning during my ink ribbon run, so I'll be making use of that if I can. Outside of all that though, I'll only be using the stuff you can get on your first playthrough. But like, come on, I'm 2 playthroughs in and I know all the game's tricks. How hard could this possibly be? I didn't think that was actually possible. So the hotel is pretty much the exact same as before, but when we switch over to Leon, we really get to see what Insanity has in store for us. Enemies are tankier, faster, more erratic, hit way harder, and just for shits and giggles, they throw in some blister heads right from the start. Yay. Something you'll figure out pretty quickly here is that the shotgun is your new pistol. The pistol itself is an absolute pea shooter that's only good for breaking environmental objects or setting off explosive barrels, so don't even bother trying to use it as an actual weapon. If you haven't learned how to parry yet, you will, because without armor, a single hit from basically anything will put you near death if it doesn't just kill you instantly. Learning when and where to parry and knowing when it's safe to sharpen your axe is paramount on Insanity. If you don't unleash your inner Sekiro, you're gonna have a real bad time. After a couple embarrassing deaths caused by me trying to practice parries in the middle of a zombie swarm, I made it out alive and moved on to Grace's next section, which actually went very smoothly. You see, there's this cart you have to move so you can reach a toolbox on a shelf, but the problem is that the items on it will start falling off as you move it, and that'll make noise that alerts the girl. Well, it turns out that if you move it in very short bursts and then let it settle, nothing will fall off, which is really fucking slow, but crucially, much more safe. Or you can just hide under the little table here if you knock any equipment off the cart. Look, I didn't trust it, okay? She'd totally be able to see you. Well, anyway, I got through it no problem, and after a totally easy Leon combat arena, I was back in the main care center, and this is really where Insanity takes on its own identity. Part of that is down to some incredibly nasty tricks this difficulty pulls just to fuck with you. Things like moving the first pistol farther into the care center or putting enemies in closets that were previously empty. But the baseline stat boosts all enemies get also completely changes your strategy. Resources aren't necessarily all that much more limited, but each zombie having so much more health means every bullet counts, and trying to kill them all will drain you dry fast. I spent a lot more time just sneaking around like I was in Dishonored, planning out routes that would get me around enemies and through areas as efficiently as possible, because any run-in with a blisterhead was an instant crisis scenario. I had to use the few injectors I was able to craft on any zombie that I remembered turning into one, especially this fucking guy right here. It was honestly really tough, and I'm not sure if I could have done it without the I Spy charm. It probably saved my ass at least half a dozen times. My biggest mistake came when I panicked and wasted all the Requiem rounds I'd managed to save up on the encounter in the conference room, which would absolutely come back to bite me in the ass. In my defense, 4 zombies that you can't easily juke in an enclosed space guarding a key item makes for a difficult situation. I wanted my damn corrosive. Except you don't even need to come here. You can just kill these zombies as Leon, and the corrosive is free to grab afterwards. I may be stupid. So after many harrowing encounters, all that was left was to take Emily to the puzzle box in the isolation ward, which was the single hardest moment in this entire run. I had plenty of handgun bullets, 3 knives too, but only a single green herb and 40 blood, so I couldn't really craft anything better. It was here that I really started to regret wasting those magnum shots, but all I could do was stare at the unusable rare metal in my item box, taunting me. So I died. A lot. At first I thought if I could just aim better, kite better, react faster, then I could somehow make it through, but that was getting me nowhere. It was just too difficult to take on multiple zombies in this arena with only a handgun and some knives. There was a zombie on the way in that I could kill for some blood, plus some blood packs in the room I could use on the fly to make some better resources, but I was still getting my shit rocked. Ultimately, the thing that pushed me over the edge was using all 3 charms and every item at my disposal, and even then I had to be saved by running down the clock while trying to hide from the blisterhead that always spawns. I didn't even know this fight had a timer before this. But with that, I escaped the care center with a shred of health and a pitiful inventory, afraid of when Grace's next turn would come around. In the meantime, I started putting plans into motion as Leon. After a grueling fight with Chunk, I got to work like some kind of zombie-slaying Santa Claus, parrying my way down the chimney on Christmas Eve, leaving as many goodies for Grace as I could to make everything after the basement as easy as possible for her. From there, all that was left to do was beating the combat arena in the director's office. It was a good opportunity to practice parrying some more, but for the life of me, I could not figure out how to parry their insta-kill lunge attack. Gamer's wisdom says you can never parry a grab, but I know it's possible because I did it later, so I guess I just hadn't unlocked my full gamer potential yet. In any case, it was a huge relief when Leon popped his cheesy cardio one-liner and I was free to move on to the basement.
Well, that's my cardio for the week.
And so I ended my first Insanity session at the start of the Rhodes Hill Evil Blood Dungeon, and I was not feeling good about my resource economy going in. That night I had a dream about getting bitten by all the zombies in the care center. But soon enough, I was back at it, and at this point, I felt like I was getting the hang of things. Before the girl's scripted appearance, I went and grabbed all the blood and items that I could, and finally got myself some more bullets for the Requiem. Once I had the first joint plug, I went and got the square socket wrench and the lockpick from the boiler room, so I only had to enter the bunk room once, popped this guy because I knew he would blisterize, and on my way back from getting the forklift key, I took the alternate path to the body conveyors so I wouldn't have to waste any bullets on the guy banging on this door here. Honestly, things were going suspiciously well, and there's a reason for that. You see, on Insanity, you can't just spend one Requiem bullet to get the girl to fuck off. Even 3 rounds don't do anything, so you have to use stealth to get past her during every forced encounter. It's honestly not that much harder, but it's an extra layer of challenge that you can't just press the skip button on anymore, and it makes getting caught by the girl more threatening, which is actually pretty nice. After a successful first try at Fall Guys, I was pretty much home free for finishing the basement. And I definitely didn't die to the girl a bunch of times trying to grab the plug next to the forklift, and even if I did, which I didn't, I forgot to start recording again after taking a break, so truly the only person who knows what happened in that room is me. And you trust me, don't you? But now it was finally time to go around and slurp up everything I left for myself as Leon, and I gotta say, I was really feeling myself at this point. I mean, the lab escape is pretty free on any oh my god, stop doing that! The sniping sequence played out pretty much the same after Insanity pulled another one of its fun little gotchas, and the Blisterborn fight taught me just how important throwable weapons were going to be in combat later down the line. I even had a decent amount of Requiem ammo for the final encounter with the girl, and now she magically only took 2 shots to stun for some reason. After a very poignant cutscene,
Sorry, Ethan.
Why?
I was feeling ready to take on Raccoon City. And you know what? I think I finally hit my stride. Maybe it was just because Leon is so much more powerful than Grace and I could finally save whenever I wanted again, but I never died more than once or twice on any encounter here. It also helps that you can buy level 3 armor that just makes you take a normal amount of damage instead of your whole health bar. There is that. By this point, I had a pretty good idea of when to push forward and make progress, or when to return to base camp to save and upgrade my weapons, and I'd also gotten pretty damn good at parrying. I wasn't exactly feeling unstoppable. I still struggled against Big Spider, and the early BSAA zombies tripped me up pretty bad, but I was beginning to feel like it could really go all the what the fuck? I was beginning to feel like I could really go all the way. After the bike chase, which plays out the exact same, thank God, I ended my second session of Insanity inside the RPD, and that night I got some very restful sleep. The next time I booted up the game, I had the feeling that I was gonna finish this. The flashback to the orphanage is the same, thank God, but the boss fight with Mr. X wasn't as mind-numbingly easy as it was before. His increased health meant that he had more opportunities to punish every missed parry and chip away at my armor. And once that was gone, he got me down to a pixel of health and put me on the back foot completely. I had nothing to heal with, so I was forced to play absolutely perfectly if I wanted to survive. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't do that, but I did get insanely lucky with him whiffing a couple attacks that absolutely should have killed me. But with those incredible strokes of luck, I beat him first try and went on my merry way. The next boss was the easiest one so far. Didn't take a single point of damage after learning my lesson with trying to parry it on standard. And now I was entering the final area of the game, the Ark. The elite guards weren't very elite in the face of my masterful stealth tactics, and before long it was time for another rematch with the Grim Reaper himself. But I wasn't worried. At this point, I was kicking ass and taking names. I was pretty confident in my parry skills. Plant 43 didn't even hit me, and I had 7 full heals to my name. Hunk was going down.
Target neutralized.
So Hunk is actually a challenge on Insanity. Even with level 3 armor, he rocks your shit, and his melee combos have delays to trip up your parry timing, which makes them all the more satisfying to land. After a couple futile attempts to fight him with melee only, I just started shotgunning him in the face after every parry, and that seemed to work out. Oh, and Insanity throws some extra soldiers at you after the fight is over, but it's just another one of those one-time gotchas. But now it was time for Grace's final section, and I'm proud to report that I made it through with 0 deaths. Obviously, I still had to be extra sneaky, but I think what's interesting is that the added difficulty didn't come from the lickers, but from the regular zombies being stronger than before. Lickers were about the same, actually. They still died in one hit to injectors and acid, but having to be more careful not to make sound while dealing with the other guys made them more of a genuine threat. It definitely made this final lab section feel less like a pointless cakewalk than it did on standard. I also amazingly didn't die during Leon's half of the lab, even when the game tried to throw a liquor at me during its first little T-virus tummy ache. I'd even been making sure to save up plenty of Requiem rounds to make that final encounter before the elevator easier, and it definitely paid off. And, well, that's it. That's Insanity. All I had to do was destroy Elpis, watch Leon die, and roll credits, and that's a wrap. Mission accomplished. No, I'm just kidding. We gotta fight the final boss. And fight I did. I was parrying almost every one of Gideon's attacks, using every opening to get some damage in, but disaster struck when my axe broke. I didn't have much in the way of healing, and Victor didn't leave me a lot of openings to sharpen it, but eventually I stumbled my way into a decent reset for phase 2. This phase is actually kinda easier than the first one because he takes forever to charge up his blue Victor energy, and that gave me plenty of time for reloading and sharpening, but he had one nasty trick left in store for me. The rocket launcher. I knew what I had to do. I could see it in my mind's eye. All of my practicing was leading up to this. And I sent that rocket right back in his face. In fact, I beat Gideon's human form first try, but I gave it everything I had and went into the final battle on a sliver of health. But hey, if I could beat that form first try, who's to say I couldn't beat this? Well hey, they say third try's the charm. Even did it on a magic pixel. And with that, I finally rolled credits on Insanity. What a happy ending.
I didn't hit any of her vitals.
Gotta say, that was way more fun than I expected, and honestly, kind of exactly what I wanted the game to feel like the first time around. Grace's sections were extremely precarious challenges in resource management and routing that you couldn't just brute force your way through with the Requiem, and the girl actually continues to be a real threat past your first encounter with her. For Leon, his sections were fun breathers that still pushed you to learn how to use his toolset effectively. The increased focus on parrying even squeezes out some extra depth to Leon's gameplay that was missing in Standard Classic, not just in regular gameplay, but against bosses too. The fight with Mr. X was definitely the highlight of this run for me, but the duel with Hunk also finally felt more like the epic battle that it pretends to be on the standard difficulties. I also really like how Insanity incorporated game knowledge into the design. Not just the little fuck yous, but also things like blister head spawns. Planning out which blister heads to preempt with your limited supply of injectors was actually a really cool part of effectively navigating Grace's levels. I can't lie, I fully expected to bounce off of this and come back with all the crazy bonuses from the points shop, but the more I played, the more I realized that I could actually do this the hard way. But now I've beaten the game's hardest difficulty, and I still have all these wonderful toys I didn't get to play with. Oh, what the hell. Let's go for 100%. So what have we learned today? Well, we learned that AAA games are slowly flattening themselves into a singular capital P product in a bid to appeal to everyone and their mother and their dog and their girlfriend and their girlfriend's girlfriend. But also that Capcom makes really fun and replayable games with difficulty modes that really push your knowledge of the systems they design. So, nothing. We learned nothing. But in all seriousness, if there's a silver lining to this, it's that RE9 is the perfect game to get your feet wet with working your way up to higher difficulties in a game. It's definitely got me wanting to go back and give hardcore a shot in RE2's remake, and that's a cool new feeling for me. Sometimes it's really fun to push your limits, and hell, you might even do things you never thought you were capable of, and that's genuinely rewarding. It just kinda sucks that the default difficulties feel like training wheels for Insanity instead of standing on their own, but at the end of the day, this is just my own experience. Maybe standard modern was perfectly normal for you. Maybe playing it was you pushing your limits, and that's okay. I don't care what Brett thinks, and neither should you. Overall, I do think Requiem is really great, and if you like Resident Evil, you should definitely pick it up at some point. Well now, I would say I'm thoroughly satisfied, but there's just one problem. The game definitely got more tense and challenging, but it didn't really get any scarier. I'm still so unscared right now. No, whatever. I'll just go play Lost in Vivo or something. Oh my god! Never mind. Oh, hey, wait a sec.
Not to me. Nice.